Good afternoon and welcome to the Committee on Judiciary. It is Monday, April 12th, and I would like to call this meeting to order. Will the clerk please take roll call attendance?
Madam Chair.
Here.
Senator Archambault. Senator Reptakis.
Here.
Senator Burke.
Here.
Senator Oyer.
Here.
Senator Lombardi. Senator Quesada.
Here.
Senator Rogers.
Here.
Whip de la Cruz.
Here.
And President Ruggiero.
Here.
You have 8 members present. There's a quorum.
I believe Whip Goodwin.
I am here, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Whip.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for recognizing me.
Again, our committee has another full agenda today. I expect we'll be going long into the night and most likely into the morning as we have over 300 witnesses signed up to testify today. We will be hearing 21 bills related to firearms or the use of firearms. In keeping with existing virtual protocol for this committee, I would ask for a motion to hold all 21 of these bills before us for further study. May I have a motion to hold the 21?
Motion to hold.
Thank you, Senator Rogers. Seconded by Senator Reptakis and Senator Quesada. Mr. Clerk, will you please call a roll call vote?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Senator Reptakis.
Yes.
Senator Burke.
Yes.
Senator Oyer.
Yes.
Senator Quesada.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes.
Whip de la Cruz.
Yes.
Whip Goodwin.
Yes.
And President Ruggiero.
Yes.
There are 9 in the affirmative and none in the negative.
Thank you very much. I would like to go through the procedure for today's hearing. In an effort to utilize both the sponsors and the public's time more efficiently while conducting these hearings virtually, I will ask each of the sponsors, if present, to introduce and explain their bill. Sponsors will have 3 minutes to do so. Upon conclusion of the sponsor's introduction and explanation, we will then take questions and comments from committee members. At the conclusion of the sponsor's portion of this hearing, we will then take testimony from 4 advocates, 2 representing each side of the firearm issue designated by their respective group or organization. We realize that regardless of which side of the issue you agree or disagree with, the advocacy groups do not speak for everyone, but do assist in framing the issue before this committee and the public. Each advocate will be given 5 minutes to address all or some of the bills which have been introduced this evening. Committee members may then ask questions if they wish after each advocate's presentation. At the conclusion of the advocate portion of this hearing, general officers who have official stamped bills will be allowed 2 minutes to make comment. Again, committee members may ask questions of the general officer after their comments. Finally, we will then proceed to the public testimony portion of the hearing. For the purposes of an equitable apportionment of time and resources, the public will be allowed 1 minute and 15 seconds to testify on all of the bills introduced this evening. You will hear an alarm go off at the 1-minute mark to alert you that 15 seconds remain. A 1 minute and 15 seconds, we will thank you for your testimony and move on to the next witness. All right. With that, we will begin this evening's agenda with the sponsor portion. And we will begin with, on the agenda, Senate Bill number 73 by President Ruggiero. And I want to welcome you, Mr. President, to the committee this afternoon. And this bill here is an act relating to criminal offenses, the Harold M. Metz School Safety Act 2021. Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This bill is no stranger to anyone who's been up here for a few years. It's legislation that for many years was championed by former Senator Harold Metz. I was honored to submit it this year and rename the bill the Harold M. Metz School Safety Act of 2021. The bill is relatively straightforward. It would prohibit guns in schools. They don't have to tell school officials that they're carrying a gun. They don't have to tell police. Only 4 states allow this unrestricted conceal and carry. The bill would exempt Rhode Island peace officers. Put simply, I believe that guns do not belong in schools. Statistics will bear out that it's far more likely for someone to be hurt in an accident involving a firearm in a school than for any good that may come from it. There have been dozens of examples of mishandling and accidental discharges of firearms in schools across the country. Citizens carrying firearms in schools increase risk, not safety. More broadly speaking, we are working hard to improve education in the state of Rhode Island. The presence of firearms in school, I believe, is detrimental to a positive learning environment. I know you have a long hearing day today, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I thank you for taking the time to hear me on what I consider a very important issue, and I'm willing to take any questions from any members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are there, yes, Senator Rogers.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Rogers, you may proceed.
through the chair to the president, I did have one question. Mr. President mentioned the statistics bear out that this is a bill that needs to be changed, and I'm confused. I've tried to find statistics about concealed carry holders in schools where there's been a problem. So when the president mentions statistics, I'd like to know what statistics he's specifically speaking about and where can I find them?
Thank you, Senator. I've been informed by my staff that there have been I have not seen those statistics personally, but I will get that information and I'll get that to you. I know they have statistics on discharges and accidental shootings. I don't know if anyone has been injured in those. I don't have that information in front of me right now, but I will take a look at it.
Just one quick follow-up.
Yes, go ahead,
Understood
Senator.
on statistics through the chair. There may, I want to be clear that this bill specifically pointed at concealed carry holders. So I hope those statistics would be from actual concealed permit carry holders where they've had their misfires and accidents in schools, not just the general public or criminals being in the school with firearms. Statistically, specifically to the point of concealed carry holders in schools, because that's where this bill is directly addressing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rogers, and we'll make sure we get those that information for you. Are there any other questions for the President on his bill? Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your testimony this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Next.
Madam Chair, I'm
Yes.
sorry, Madam Chair, it's Senator Lombardi. May I be recorded as being present? I never got a web link for this meeting, and I just called in and I was able to get it through my secretary.
No problem if you would record Senator Lombardi. President, would you also like to be recorded in the affirmative on the hold for further study on the 21 bills?
Yes, Madam Chair, please, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Lombardi. Seeing no other questions from committee members, we will now proceed to Senate Bill number 406 by Senator Seveney. Senator, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So this bill, Senate 406, is an Attorney General bill, and what this does is expand existing laws on safe storage of weapons. Right now, under current law, there are penalties if a child under 16 gets a hold of a gun, something bad happens. This bill will expand that to establish fines, a $3,000 fine if a weapon, a firearm, is left unsecured in your home. It goes on to expand the fines if a child under 18 actually gets a hold of the weapon and something bad happens. So all this does is expand the existing law. Safe storage means it's locked up if it's not on your person, if you don't have immediate control over the weapon. or and locked up, being either locked away somewhere or some sort of a mechanical lock that renders the weapon inoperable until the owner releases it. Currently, there are 14 states that have laws such as this. There is a lot of statistics, as the president mentioned, relative to accidents, suicides, thefts, all related to unsecured weapons that are easily available in someone's home. What this bill looks to do is try to eliminate the tragedies that sometimes come with gun ownership, where someone, either a child or someone in a moment of despair, may make a decision that is finalized because they had ready access to a weapon, and there's no real chain of events that keeps someone from immediately using it. That's what we're trying to get to. I mean, 350 children under the age of 18 in this past year have unintentionally discharged a firearm and hurt either themselves or somebody else. Suicides are rampant. That's one of the major causes of gun deaths in the country. You'll hear testimony later from people who have suffered through these kinds of tragedies. And this is a simple, a straightforward fix to help eliminate this kind of thing. There's hundreds of thousands of guns every year that are stolen from their owner, and there are thousands of consequent crimes used with those guns. And I believe this bill can fix or help to fix all of these problems related to easy access to a weapon that's ready to fire.
Thank you, Senator.
So with that, I'll call it quits.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Senator Seveney? Yes, Senator Reptakis, please.
Thank you, Senator. The numbers you just shared with us, the 350, I believe it was 350 incidents of child being injured, and then you talk about thousands of stolen firearms from rightful owners. Are we talking national? Or are we just talking in Rhode Island?
Those are national figures.
Okay, so how many did we have last year in Rhode Island, or the last 5 years? Is this something that, because I haven't seen that much in the media. I'm not sure if I missed something, but I know when we talk about drunk driving, that's a serious problem in Rhode Island. We do increase penalties, but the question is, why are we increasing the penalties that high? And number two, did we have incidences in Rhode Island? Because a lot of this legislation, we're using other instances in Florida or Oklahoma or Minnesota, but we're not targeting our own home state to see what the statistics are. So I'd like to see what the numbers were in Rhode Island and the number of incidences. So that would help give us a determination on all this, like not just your, Senator, but all the bills that are in front of us today. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll do what I can to get you some local statistics, but the point here isn't really how many have happened. The point is, how do we keep it from happening in our state going forward? And that's really the point of this bill. That's the point of the fines, to make sure people are paying attention. And I did leave out one point, that the fines are high, but the first part of the bill related to simply being fined for keeping an unsecured weapon in your home, that it's not intended for that to constitute a felony. I believe the ACLU brought up that issue, and I'm working with the Attorney General's office to make sure that gets fixed.
Thank you. I believe Senator Rogers had a question. Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question in the statement. This bill really concerns me. Most people, and this doesn't even pertain to concealed carry holders. Many people have firearms in their homes, and it's for home protection. Once we start locking these guns up, where's the balance? And again, back to what Mr. Raptaka said, I agree with him, and I'd also like to narrow that down where these issues were problems in other states. Did those states have strict laws already on the books like Rhode Island has, or are they lenient to that point? Also, I think, and I got to get it out on this one, I think this one has some situations where it becomes unconstitutional in your house. To begin with, my door's locked, so I already have my guns locked inside my house. So if guns are being stolen, they're being stolen by criminals who are breaking into the house. But back onto the constitutional issue of this. I'm going to read a little section here. After the Heller decisions, the courts have been split on how they review regulating fundamental rights. Most courts analyze the challenge regulation under a particular level of scrutiny. Typically, constitutional claims are evaluated under rational basis, intermediate, or strict scrutiny. Under strict scrutiny, rational basis is reviewed. It is the most differential of legislatures, with courts asking whether a statute is rationally related to a legitimate government purpose. Under strict scrutiny, the most exact standard of review, the government must show that the regulation furthers a compelling governmental interest and is narrowly tailored to serve that interest. In between these two is intermediate scrutiny, in which the court asks, 1, the regulation furthers a substantial or important governmental interest, or 2, there is reasonable or substantial fit between the asserted interest and the challenged law, and 3, the restriction is no longer greater than the necessary to further the interest. Now, to put that simple, in Second Amendment challenges, courts typically will consider the nature of conduct being regulated and the degree of which the challenged law burdens the right. Thus, less severe regulation, a regulation does not encroach on the core of the Second Amendment, requires a less demanding means and showing. In the case, courts apply form of immediate scrutiny to Second Amendment challenges. For instance, in the United States versus Macedonia, the Fourth Circuit drew a line between firearm possession in the home versus outside the home and concluded that the strict scrutiny would apply to the former and the intermediate scrutiny to the latter. We assume that any law that would burden the fundamental core right of self-defense in the home by law-abiding citizens would be subject to strict scrutiny. But as we move outside the home, firearm rights have also been more limited because of public safety interests and often outweigh the interests of self-defense. Finally, based on the Heller, most courts have reviewed rationally based review as off the table, leaving strict and immediate scrutiny to the two categories of heightened scrutiny for the courts to choose when it comes to the Second Amendment. So, in a nutshell, this is encroaching on somebody's right to defend their house and everything in it because of the strict scrutiny rule, and courts don't even want to go there. So, on its face, I would have to say that this is an unconstitutional law, and it will be challenged, and I believe it will be won if it does pass. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other
I
questions?
mean, the Attorney General has looked at this and has a different opinion. And certainly there is, in my view, a compelling government interest to ensure that people aren't harmed by the weapons they keep in their home, which overwhelmingly that's what happens with a weapon in the home, much more than a self-defense circumstance. That being said, between the mechanical locks or locking it up in a gun case or in a closet or whatever the case may be, I think the reasonable person can conclude that you still have time to get your weapon and load it and protect yourself. Those circumstances where someone breaks into your home with no time to react, I think are rare, and the circumstances are much more frequent that something tragic and unfortunate happens with those unsecured weapons.
Thank you, Senator. Yes, Senator Rogers?
Chair, just as a quick rebuttal, on those stats, those are actually stats and fatalities and incidents that have happened. But in those stats, they're unquantified because you got to understand, many times that somebody coming in, a situation has been diffused, and those aren't counted. So I could probably say those stats, if they were taken, were probably 80% more the other way, that solved problems instead of created issues and misfiring. So, we could sit here and go back and forth, and that's not what I want to do. But I do want to put in a note that, yes, it may be unconstitutional, and the Attorney General is that third power, and the one that's going to decide on that is the judicial end when it gets brought up as being unconstitutional. So I do take some weight of what he says, but he's not the final arbiter on that decision. And I believe these court cases will bear out if this passes that it is unconstitutional.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Quesada, you wanted to speak?
Well, the only thing I wanted to speak, and I want to thank you, Madam Chair, first. Senator Seveney, you're right. We want to wait when something happens, and then we're going to do something about it. It happened in all the state. Does not mean it's not going to happen in Rhode Island. When kids get into the parents' guns and shoot a friend, they don't. A kid had a problem in school and decide to go and take the gun from the parents and do something about it. But we want to wait for something to happen, and then we're going to come and say, oh, I'm sorry, we should have passed this before. Now is the time to do it. I think this is the time to do it, and I want to thank Senator Seveney for putting this bill together. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. At this time, I would like to... yes, Senator De La Cruz. Oh, you want to speak? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think Senator Rogers put it very succinctly, that it is unconstitutional. So regardless of how we feel on an issue, we need to look to the law and to the Constitution, which we took an oath to defend and uphold. So I would echo his strict scrutiny, what Senator Rogers had said. And let me also point out that who's going to enforce this? Are police departments going to come into our homes and check to see if our firearms are indeed locked up? I just don't see how this, again, well-meaning, I understand, I'm sure Senator Seveney's heart is in the right place. He cares about the children. We all do. But we can't legislate based on how we feel about something.
Thank you, Senator De La Cruz. I would also like to welcome Senator Archambault to the rostrum this evening. We are going to work together to get through the long agenda that we have. I would also like to see him marked present. And would you like to be recorded in the affirmative on the 21 bills held for further study?
Yes, please, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I believe that you have a question also.
I do, thank you. First and foremost, I want to preface my comments by saying I have the greatest respect for you, Senator Seveney. Two issues concern me with this bill. The first is the paternalistic aspect. Your discussion about suicide and whether or not someone would be more apt to commit suicide because a gun isn't locked, respectfully, I think is misplaced. There are two types of people who really talk about suicide. I'm overly simplifying, and I'm not a clinician. I was a police officer. But those people are the ones who are crying out for attention and really need more help, and the people who are really going to commit suicide. And a lock, whether or not it's on a gun, being the barrier to the person who really wants to commit suicide, being the stop all. There are going to be tragic circumstances, and I'm certainly not minimizing it. But to take that type of an analysis and then to superimpose that on every lawful gun owner out there and to say that they somehow now are felons because they don't have locks on guns behind their own doors in their own home or castle, I think is misplaced. I don't think it's an accurate analysis, respectfully, and I don't think we should be superimposing our paternalistic views on society in Rhode Island with that mindset. Secondly, I am concerned. I'll leave the constitutional arguments that were put forth earlier by, I think properly, under strict scrutiny by Senator Rogers, to their place that's already been made for them. But taking an existing bill that I'm looking at, which has it as a misdemeanor right now, and raising it, and respectfully, I think arbitrarily, to this $5,000 number. I mean, yeah, Senator Raptakis asked, where's this number come from? Where do we go from 1,000 to 5,000, and making every lawful owner of a firearm in their home a felon if they don't have a lock on their guns? I understand the feel-good sentiment of it in the midst of a host of gun bills. I get that, but I think it's misplaced. I absolutely don't think it's proper. I will say the one place we do use gun locks often is I prosecute for several towns, and if you have a firearm that's been taken for a timeout in a situation where it's either a domestic arrest or a red flag situation, when we give the firearm back, we have a waiver form that we use in the different departments, and then you get a trigger lock with the firearm, and that's given as a token of the right direction to go in terms of keeping the gun safe from others. But it certainly wouldn't be given back to the individual as the basis for a crime if they didn't put the firearm away with a safety lock on it. Finally, the last thing I'll say is, again, and I mean this respectfully, for anybody to Monday morning quarterback a violent situation that occurs in a home break is absolutely unfair and misplaced. You don't know what that situation's like till you've been in it, until that's happened to you. And if all hell breaks loose and somebody breaks into your home and they're trying to kill you or rape somebody or commit some horrible crime and you've got a firearm there, you want to be able to get that firearm. So to say respectfully that somebody will be able to get that trigger lock off and get the gun out, okay, I'd like to see where those statistics come from, what type of factual basis we have there. But anyways, so those are my points. And again, I have great respect for you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Right now, I would like to move on to the next bill. I believe we're going to take out of order Senate Bill number 419 by Whip Goodwin, an act relating to criminal offenses, weapons. Whip Goodwin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'll be very brief. This is Senate Bill 419 is a bill that I was happy to introduce on behalf of the Attorney General. Currently, the Attorney General, just as a way of brief background, is defending our state currently in a lawsuit over statutory bans on stun guns. This suit is based on similar successful claims that have been brought in other states. And I wanted to point out, if the state does not successfully defend the law, stun guns and potentially other electronics can be purchased without a background check. And I think that that's key there. And it would, tools that are currently prohibited from such firearms, we have to really, be careful. This bill will further define what the actual electronic is, and that would be to encompass items commonly known as stun guns and tasers. And lastly, I'd just like to point out, it would be subject, these devices, to possession and purchase restrictions that are placed currently on firearms. I think it's a reasonable piece of legislation, Madam Chair, and thank you for hearing this bill. I think you'll be hearing later on from the Attorney General himself. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Yes, Whip Goodwin, we will be hearing from members of the Attorney General on this bill and others. Do I have any questions for the Whip at this time? Senator De La Cruz.
I don't have a question, but I do have a statement. In my freshman term, I submitted this piece of legislation with additional language for appeals process for those denied a license to carry, which will be discussed later on. This bill, allowing for tasers and stun guns is going to be, well, first of all, we're only one of 2 states that don't allow it, and it's been found unconstitutional to prohibit individuals from owning electronic arms. Again, I will dive deeper into the bill once it comes my turn. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Thank you, Whip Goodwin. We will revert back now to Senate Bill number 414 by Senator Golden, an act relating to criminal offenses, large capacity feeding device ban of 2021. Senator Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and that is what Senate Bill 414 does. It limits the magazine capacity by prohibiting the manufacture, sale, transfer, purchase, possession, or control of high-capacity magazines capable of holding more than 10 rounds of ammunition. I've introduced this bill for years, and here's why. December 1989, I was in my first year of college. As I stood outside the library preparing for my end of semester exams, I heard the news. Just down the street at École Polytechnique at Université de Montréal, a shooter had walked into the engineering classroom, dismissed all the male students, and started shooting all of the women, yelling that he was fighting feminism. Over the course of the next few minutes, he murdered 14 women and wounded 14 more students. Shortly thereafter, the Canadian government took action, making sweeping changes to gun laws. Limiting the sale of high-capacity magazines in Canada did not end gun ownership there, but it has saved lives. Prohibiting high-capacity magazines can help save lives in Rhode Island, too. Data shows it. A majority of your constituents know it. The Attorney General knows it. The Governor knows it. The Treasurer and Secretary of State know it. And a majority of senators are co-sponsors of this bill because they know it, too. When a similar federal prohibition was in place from 1994 to 2004, mass shooting deaths were 70% less likely to occur. We've seen the same evidence in other states with similar laws. Currently, Rhode Island law limits rounds for hunting deer to 5 rounds and 3 rounds for ducks. There are no such limits for humans. 23 years and 1 week after the École Polytechnique massacre in Montreal, a shooter entered an elementary school in Connecticut. I remember that day very clearly, too. My kids were in 3rd and 6th grade. The mom of one of my youngest son's friends called to see if he could come over to play after school that day, and I told her I needed to see him first, make sure he's okay, be able to give him a hug, grateful that my own children were safe that day. My children have grown up doing active shooter drills at school. They know how to hide, stay silent, block a door in an instant. And since the massacre of worshipers in a Pennsylvania synagogue, our whole family and families just like ours pray in synagogues that are guarded by the police. I am furious. My children have grown up in a world where escaping death by a shooter is part of their education and part of their religion. This bill is in line with the laws in other states, including neighboring Massachusetts and Connecticut. And for years, we have heard from parents and doctors and police officers, mayors and children's business owners, gun violence survivors, all imploring us to take action. And while I'm speaking on behalf of my own bill, the other gun safety bills are a package designed to work together with this particular bill. So on behalf of my constituents, the 45 members of the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence, all of our statewide office holders, and the 20 co-sponsors of this bill, I'm asking you to send this bill to the Senate floor for a vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator, for your introduction. Before we go to comments and questions, I believe Leader McCaffrey is with us and would like to be marked present and in the affirmative on the bills for holding for further study. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. With that, does anyone have any questions for Senator Golden? Yes, Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Chair Coyne. A couple of questions and concerns. On line 15 of this bill, it discusses floor plates on the magazines. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but if this bill passes, little information, there's been 1.5 million magazines sold in firearms in the last few years in the state of Rhode Island alone. And I started looking at my magazines because I really didn't pay too much attention to floor plates because, you know, and I understand the bill. The reason to take the floor plate is because you can add an extension to it. I don't know. These are empty magazines, people, and these are just a couple of firearms. I don't know if everybody sees that little dot at the bottom of that magazine. And that is the floor plate of the magazine. And the purpose of that is so you could remove this. It allows, because I have a big hand, to extend it just so my pinky can go on it, or I can put a shorter one on it. But the main purpose of the floor plate is to replace the springs when they wear out. So in essence, if this bill passes as it has with the language of a removable floor plate, maybe it was the intent of the person putting it in thinking we wouldn't pick up on it. I wouldn't doubt that. Maybe, I don't know. But it would, in essence, outlaw almost every single firearm in the state of Rhode Island because of the language with the floor plate. Because every single one of them is removable to replace the spring. So here's another one. Very small firearm. These magazines, this one only holds 5. And that little dot at the bottom is to replace this, take this off right here to replace the spring. And this one holds 6. They're well under 10, but every single one of the firearms that I have has a removable floor plate. And they're well under the 10 that this bill talks about. But it makes every one of my firearms illegal.
Thank you,
That's all I
Senator.
have.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments for Senator Golden? Yes, Senator De La Cruz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I'm a mom, 3 kids. I understand the, you know, sending my kids to school, saying a little prayer over them, and you know, every time they walk out the door, any mom, you know, is concerned that their child will be safe. So I understand how Senator Golden feels when she's talking about her children. However, we have to again look at the law, the Second Amendment, and weigh it against how we feel about something. And also, there was mention about Canadian laws. We're not Canada. We're the United States. We have a Second Amendment. Canada is very different from us. We shouldn't compare ourselves to another country. And that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, Senator Golden. Yes, Senator Quesada.
How many other states have this law restriction on high capacity magazine? Many others. Can you, Senator De La Cruz or Senator, they can answer that question, please?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer that question. Right now, states with the limited capacity magazine restrictions are Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Colorado, California, Hawaii, and the District of Columbia. This law has been upheld by the First Circuit in Massachusetts as constitutional. And if I may, I do want to respond to the assertion that this would ban all high-capacity magazines.
Yes.
Because the bill does not deem a magazine to be a high-capacity magazine solely because it has a removable floor plate. The language of the bill says the magazine with a removable floor plate shall be considered a high-capacity magazine only if the magazine can readily be extended to accept more than 10 rounds of ammunition. I'm certain that the experts who you have testifying from the AG's office, and I don't know if it's Colonel Manny or Commissioner Perry, would be happy to go into that point further.
Thank you, Senator Golden. Senator De La Cruz?
I'd like to know how the number 10 was decided upon. It seems, you know, like an arbitrary number. Why not 6? Why not 2? Why not 12? Why 10?
Senator Golden?
Thank you. That's what the research shows is the safest magazine. And I'm sure that the experts would be happy to have that conversation with you as well. But it's not an arbitrary number. It's based on research.
Senator De La Cruz?
If you would please share that research with me so I can go over it tonight or tomorrow whenever you send it.
Thank you, Senator De La Cruz. Senator Golden? Senator Rogers?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to reiterate, there is no grandfather language in this bill. So literally, every handgun that I and many people that I associate with will have to get rid of all the magazines and get rid of their firearms because every single removable plate has the ability to put an extension on it. The way this bill is written, and without it being grandfathered in, it's going to cost a lot of people a lot of money to retrofit their guns.
Thank you, Senator
And
Rogers.
a waste of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Quesada.
I just want to know how, Senator Golding just mentioned how many states already had this law. How did the fire alarm, the fire industry work in those states?
Thank you. In terms of like how to deal with it, they were, you know,
how they deal with that.
yeah, the manufacturers, you know, developed high-capacity magazines the manufacturers have developed magazines that would retrofit into those weapons that would meet the state law. So there have still been gun sales and still ammunition sales in those states. They are just created so that they can adapt to state law. And again, I'm sure that the experts, Attorney General and whomever else is the second expert, can explain how those have happened.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Senator De La Cruz.
Thank you. I was just trying to do a quick search here on that information of these. I think Senator Golden said First Circuit Court, but I'm seeing here Ninth Circuit Court says that magazine bans are unconstitutional. So I think we should really look into, is it constitutional? Is it not constitutional? Because if the Ninth Circuit Court says magazine bans are unconstitutional, I believe that area is in the California area. So we should make sure before we move forward.
Senator, thank you very much for pointing that out. We'll make sure that we can address that when the members of the Attorney General come on for their presentation later in the evening. With that, seeing no other questions or hands up, I'm going to move to the next bill, Senate Bill 415 by Senator Miller, an act relating to criminal offenses, assault weapons. Senator Miller.
Thank you for letting me speak, and I'll speak on behalf of both 415 and 416 together.
Very good.
If that's okay.
Yes.
Yep.
You have 6 minutes.
Okay, I don't think I'll need 6 minutes, but we'll see.
Thank you.
When I first signed my name to common sense gun safety bills, there were usually 5 or 6 of them, and maybe about the same 5 or 6 who would introduce or sign them. Usually myself, Senator Rhoda Perry, Senator Chuck Levesque, and Senator Harold Metz. This was around 14 years ago, before Sandy Hook, Aurora, Las Vegas, Parkland, Pulse, before the Institute for the Study of Practice of Nonviolence intervened in over 400 gun-related calls at Rhode Island Hospital every year. But after the national assault weapons ban expired in 2004. Now in April of 2021, with a mass shooting every day this month, these 2 bills I introduced have in both the Senate and the House enough co-signers that we now represent a majority of Rhode Island legislators and all of our statewide office holders, including the governor, the Attorney General, General Treasurer, Secretary of State, have all stamped these bills, indicating their support. All of these elected officials have chosen to join a large majority of law enforcement in prioritizing effective straw purchase and assault weapons legislation to protect police officers, parole officers, prosecutors, court officials, judges, jurors, parents, and children from gun violence. Years ago, a few of us represented districts with majority support for common sense gun control. Now a majority of Rhode Islanders, most of the voters in your neighborhood, in almost all of your districts, support these bills. They have indicated that passing legislation is more effective than thoughts and prayers to protect students in our schools, shoppers in our stores, patrons in our restaurants and nightclubs, our police on patrol, and a grandmother on her porch. We have heard enough stories from emergency room doctors and medical examiners who now measure bullet wounds with inches rather than millimeters. You have, and I have, we all no longer need to hear over and over again from survivors of domestic violence, orphans of gun violence, witnesses of schoolyard and street corner gun violence. Rhode Islanders are overwhelmingly supporting this legislation as opposed to an errant interpretation of the Second Amendment. Please stand by your neighbors, your doctor, your police chief, your fellow legislators by enabling the majority of senators and representatives who support these bills to vote in favor in their respective chambers.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Any questions for Senator Miller? Yes, Senator Rogers. You're muted, Senator Rogers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry for stealing some of the limelight here, but I'm kind of passionate in this area, as many of you know. Couple questions and statements. And a lot of states there's a few states that have put assault weapons ban. And as a matter of fact, I have one of these such guns that came from Connecticut after they put their ban in. But let me give you a little info on how it makes it actually more safer than more dangerous. We hear how dangerous these guns are. So I'm going to relate this to my motor vehicle. I'm 6'3", 240 pounds. I get in the car, my seat's all the way back, the steering wheel's all the way up, and I hit the pedals nicely. Everything is adjusted. I adjust my mirrors so I can see it. I get in my wife's car, she's got the seat all the way forward because she's 5'2" and 120 pounds soaking wet. And the steering wheel, I hit my shins and I can't even get in the vehicle. So I adjust the mirrors, I adjust the steering wheel, and I adjust the seat. Because you know what? If I drove it the way she had everything set, there's going to be an accident, and it's going to be an unsafe condition driving it. Now, my assault rifle, as you call it, some people name it, came from Connecticut because it had two things on it. And in Connecticut, their assault ban required two things. And I'll get into where this one's a little bit different in Rhode Island that we're trying to pass. So it came from Connecticut, and I purchased it. It had a forward adjustable hand grip, and it had adjustable rear stop. So when I pull it out of the case, my arms to the forward barrel's pretty long. I run the forward grip forward, and I put the stock back. And I can shoot that gun safely. I handed over the same gun to my wife, just like the same vehicle we share. She adjusts that gun to fit her shoulder and to fit her reach. If she tried to shoot that gun the way I had it set, somebody's going to get hurt, or there's going to be an accident. So a lot of these things are made so multiple people can use it, just like a car seat. So do we make cars with fixed seats and fixed steering wheels and fixed mirrors? No, we don't. There's a reason for that. Now, getting to the Rhode Island bill. It's one issue makes it an assault rifle, and one in particular, the threaded barrel. So when I'm reading it, any rifle with a threaded barrel falls under the assault weapons ban. Again, here we go back to the floor plate issue. You're going to be getting into so many guns, it goes well beyond what you think you want. And also, it's going to grandfather. This one does grandfather it in. If I have mine, I'd be grandfathered in. But I have to register it. And last time I checked, first of all, Rhode Island has a law against registering firearms. So this law will completely contradict what we already have in Rhode Island law. And not only that, I believe it's unconstitutional to register your firearms. And I will say this, and this probably upsets some people. Registration's one step away from confiscation. So that is, in fact, a true statement. So it leads to that, and that's all I have to say on this, among other things, and I'll just wait till later.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Quesada, did you have a question?
No.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Senator De La Cruz.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very lengthy bill, and I'm going through all of the definitions here of what a assault weapon is. Assault weapon defined here, I mean, I imagine an assault weapon is something someone in the military might use. You know, they're not going to use an AR-15, you know, in the midst of war. So, also, you know, having a gun that's black compared to one with a wooden butt would not, may look scarier to some people, but still serve the same function. So I'm looking here at line 16, and it says here, a semi-automatic shotgun with a fixed magazine capacity exceeding 6 rounds. That's considered an assault weapon. Line 19, a semi-automatic rifle with a capacity of 10 rounds. Semi-automatic weapon, you click on the trigger each time you click on the trigger, you shoot a bullet and ammunition. And automatic is you hold down the trigger and the ammunition keeps coming out. So I want people to realize that a lot of the firearms that we have out in circulation, most of them are semi-automatics, except for maybe revolvers or pump action. So this bans almost everything. So this goes too far.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments by committee members? Thank you very much, Senator Miller. The next bill we're going to move to is Senate Bill number 417 by Leader McCaffrey. This act would define rifle and shotgun as weapons and make it unlawful to possess a loaded rifle or shotgun in public, subject to various exceptions inclusive of hunting activity punishable by conviction upon imprisonment of up to 5 years or fine up to $5,000. It closes a loophole that currently permits open carry of rifles and shotguns on public roadways, contains exception for the hunting, and it defines rifle and shotgun based on other states' definition, specifically Massachusetts. With that, I believe when the Attorney General comes on, the representative from the Attorney General, they will address this bill further. Next, I'd like to move to, I believe it's Senate Bill 119 by Senator De La Cruz, an act relating to state affairs and government, Department of Attorney General. Senator De La Cruz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we hear a lot, year after year, the statistics thrown about, and we really, some of those statistics are national statistics, and we don't really have statistics here for Rhode Island that are well kept. For example, so I'll give you what my bill does. This act would require the Office of Attorney General to issue a report containing the total cases charged with a firearm in Rhode Island courts and the list of cases charged with a firearm which have been disposed during a calendar year. So for those individuals that are arrested, how many are arrested, how many are charged, how many are given a lesser sentence. We want to know those things. Said report would include the make, the model number, and caliber of the firearm involved in said charges. Because, again, we go through these committee hearings and we say assault weapons need to be banned, and whatever it is. We want to know how we're going to legislate based on facts. So we want to know the number, the model number, the caliber of the firearm involved, and it would also include if the firearm was stolen, altered, the serial number was removed, and also would indicate whether the firearm was a 3D printed or a ghost firearm. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much, Senator. Yes, Senator Reptakis.
Quick question, Senator De La Cruz. Today, if you were to ask the Attorney General, could you provide us all that information that you have in your bill? Especially the one that's troublesome to me is we don't know, or do we know, how many of these firearms are stolen and used in the cases that we read day in, day out, whether it's a murder or an assault. So today, do we have that information? And I think your concept of the bill hits the target, because without statistics, without information, without any data, I don't even know how we introduce some of these bills that we're hearing tonight. I mean, and the data should be pertaining to the state of Rhode Island only. Not what happened in Canada, not what happened in Colorado or in Florida. We are talking about the state of Rhode Island, and hopefully your bill, if passed, will shed some light on future introductions of gun bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions for Senator De La Cruz? Thank you very much, Senator. Next bill is mine, Senate Bill 129. It's a bill intended to standardize and consolidate the process for issuing permits to carry concealed weapons in Rhode Island. I believe this is the 5th year I've had this bill before this committee. As most of the committee does know, we currently have 2 parallel systems for the issuance of concealed carry permits in our state. This bill consolidates that discretion into a single office where a consistent standard will be applied. Even more importantly, consolidating the permitting process will enhance officer safety because under the current system, there's no centralized management of locally issued permits. Additionally, this bill limits the issuance of permits to those 21 years of age or older, and all concealed carry permit holders must undergo a national criminal background check. On a side note, the FOP has expressed its concern about repealing provisions allowing permits to be issued to law enforcement officers who have retired in good standing after 20 years of service. In an effort to align our state law with federal law, Federal Code 18 U.S. Code 926C, carrying of concealed firearms by qualified retired law enforcement officers addresses this issue, and nothing would preclude or prohibit retired officers from applying for a state permit. Do I have any questions? Thank you. Next, I would like to move. Oops.
I have a question.
Yes, Senator De La Cruz.
It's actually a statement, Senator, Chairwoman Coyne. I take issue with this bill for a couple of reasons. Is that the Attorney General is may issue, where the towns, cities and towns, those police departments are shall issue. So if we remove this to the shall issue, then we're putting ourselves in a position where the Second Amendment really isn't guaranteed in Rhode Island. The second issue I take with this piece of legislation, and not so much, it really comes from being that just recently we were hearing how all of the background checks had to go through the cities and towns because the cities and towns knew us better than a separate police department. So let me give you an example. I live in North Smithfield. If I go to Big Bear hunting in Gloucester and purchase a firearm, normally in the past, my background check would go to the Gloucester Police Department. But now it goes to North Smithfield because theoretically, North Smithfield knows me better than the Gloucester Police Department. So now what we're doing is, and we made a big fuss about this. We said it has to go to each city and town. And now what we're saying is, no, we don't need cities and towns anymore. We're going to send it to the AG, who knows nothing about us at all. So I don't know that this. We keep introducing legislation. And we're not really consistent with the whys. So those are my two concerns with the legislation.
Thank you very much, Senator. Yes, and Senator Rogers.
Chair, I did have two questions, and my colleague touched on one of them with the shall and issue. I did have that question. Why are we going to may issue when it goes to instead of the shall when it goes to the Attorney General? And the other concern I have is, showing a need. There's no standards in the bill that would dictate what the needs are that you could be denied for, or what are the needs that somebody would have to produce to have the right to hold a concealed carry. That also allows a lot of running room for the Attorney General to, in their opinion, say no. So that's a vagueness in the bill that did concern me, the show of needs and why the shall issue versus may issue wasn't in there. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Senator. And yes, Senator Archambault.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I want to echo the concerns of Senator Rogers and Senator De La Cruz. I like Chair Coyne, I was immersed in this issue the entire time. I have been immersed in this issue the entire time I've been a senator, with respect to the shall and the may provisions and whether the police chiefs want it or whether it's going to go all under the auspices of one individual like the Attorney General. I will say that I prosecute again for a few towns, and it's common for applications to be brought before me as a solicitor to look at to see whether or not the police department is on solid ground in denying the applicant because there are issues. And some of these issues, the police department is going to actually bring it to me. It's because the issues are really concerning. They're at a level where the applicant probably should be denied. I will say that I know the police chiefs are not all in unison. I mean, I'm not going to get into Sid Wardell's testimony, but I don't think all the chiefs are in unison in how they view this issue and whether or not they want to turn it over. Now, I'm sure Sid's going to testify that the police chiefs have met and they do want to they all do want to turn it over to, we have a fire alarm?
May I have your attention?
Hold that place marker.
An emergency has been reported in the building.
Oh, boy.
While this report is being verified, please leave the building using the exit
We will stand at ease at this time, please.
the elevator. Use the stairways only. Do not use the elevator.
All set. We have returned, and we apologize for the slight delay, but we had to clear the building due to an emergency. So thank you for rejoining us at this time. And I believe we were still on Bill number 129, and Senator Archambault had the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll try to be as quick as possible. I was talking about the may versus shall provision with respect to police chiefs and the dynamic of interplay between that and the Attorney General investing all of the authority to make a decision in one individual, that being the Attorney General. So my concern with that obviously has to do with the constitutional language of may versus shall. Shall is you will give the permit if the person's qualified, and may is permissive. If we are going to change it to may, then it gives, I think, too much discretion over a constitutional right. But I will say that, going back to the police chief's point, I know that they're not all on the same page when it comes to whether or not they want to vest this authority under the Attorney General. But I think I made this point, and if I was redundant, I'll make it and move on quickly. I have learned from almost 14 years of prosecuting and having reviewed a bunch of applications myself that were problematic for police departments to grant permits to, that the police really are in the best position, I think, to make the decision of whether or not to grant the permit. And that is because they know people, they know who the person is, they know the history of the person, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's a healthy thing. When you're taking in the totality of facts and whether or not you're going to grant a permit. But anyways, thank you for indulging me, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Archambault. I would like to move now to Senate Bill number 176 by Senator De La Cruz, an act relating to criminal offenses, weapons. Senator De La Cruz.
Chair, I am running to my desk.
If you'd like, I can skip over you and move to the next bill, and we can return back to you.
Sounds great, thank you.
You're quite welcome. We're going to skip over two of Senator De La Cruz's bills and move now to Senate Bill number 456 by Senator Rogers, an act relating to education, health, and safety of pupils. Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. This is, get the quick, same problem, 456. This is kind of, this bill will create a committee that oversees the safety and conditions of school and requires them to report back to the General Assembly. We all want our schools to be safe, and I think this provides a lot of in-depth to that in reporting, so we know if there's a problem or what can be corrected, and an independent body that can see it. I mean, there's a lot to it, and I think one of the advocates is going to go into depth on this later on when we start discussing it, because he had helped me a lot with this one. So that's all I have at this point.
Thank you. That was Senate Bill number 456. Any questions at this time? Senator De La Cruz, would you like to begin your testimony, or would you like me to continue with Senator Rogers?
Whichever you prefer.
We'll return back to you, Senator De La Cruz. I believe it is Senate Bill number 176. You have 3 minutes on that. You can combine the two bills to 191 with 6 minutes. Which would you prefer?
I'll do both.
Okay, very good. You have 6 minutes.
Great. So on Bill 176, this is the one that defines the taser and stun gun as a firearm. As I said, my first year in the Senate, it was a bill that I introduced. At the time, there were only 3 states that did not allow for electronic arms. It was New York, Hawaii, and Rhode Island. Since then, New York has adopted tasers and stun guns in their definition of firearm and only leaves Hawaii and Rhode Island. Sorry. So it's been found unconstitutional to prohibit individuals from purchasing such devices. Heller was the case that said firearms constitute weapons that were not in existence at the time of the founding. So that would include tasers and firearms. It also goes as far to would provide an appeals process for individuals who are denied a license to carry a concealed firearm. So currently, what happens is if when you apply for a firearm concealed carry permit, if you are denied your constitutional right, the only recourse you have is to go to the Rhode Island Supreme Court. And that is a cost-prohibitive measure for most individuals. It's also exposing. You're going to the Supreme Court, you're going to be in the news, individuals such as your family, your employer, friends, people who did not disclose the fact that you were going for a concealed carry weapons permit will probably now know that you are in the midst of a suit. So this, in any other area of the law, there is an appeals process, except for this in Rhode Island. So we need to update the laws to reflect not only the constitutionality of tasers and stun guns, but also the fairness for individuals who have been denied a license to carry a concealed firearm. The next bill that I have, Bill S-191, is this bill would provide a cause of action against individuals or an entity that prohibits the possession of firearms on real property, except for residential properties. An individual that is authorized to carry a concealed weapon but is not permitted to do so would be allowed to recover damages if that person is injured, if resulting in death, physical, emotional, and/or mental distress, economic loss, property damage, and in other areas as well. But this would only apply to individuals who have a concealed carry permit, who are on real property that prohibits concealed carry holders from. And the example that I'll give is this. There's not in Rhode Island, but it has happened in other states, is that one individual had gone to a restaurant with her family, and the restaurant said that it was a gun-free zone, so she respected that, and she put her firearm in her vehicle. Unfortunately, there was an incident at the restaurant, and the woman could not protect herself. And so in that instance, if you're a gun-free zone, you must ensure the safety of the individuals on your property. Again, this would be not for residential property, but for commercial property. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for Senator De La Cruz? Very good. Seeing none at this time, we're going to move to Senator Rogers, and I'll give you the option, Senator Rogers. You have 5 bills up. You can do all 5 for a total of 15 minutes or 3 minutes per bill. Your choice. Do we have Senator Rogers?
Sorry, I missed that. What bill was that? I'm trying to get my printer to print out. I apologize.
Okay, next bill up for you, Senator Rogers, is Senate Bill number 507, an act relating to criminal offenses, weapons. It permits Rhode Island residents 21 years of age or older to carry a concealed handgun without a permit.
That's correct. It's similar to a constitutional carry. We have 19 states that currently have constitutional carry, and I believe a 20th one is coming up soon. So almost half the country has this gun law on their books. So I think it's a good bill, and it's pretty straightforward.
Any questions for Senator Rogers on this bill? Okay, next up for Senator Rogers, he has bill number 508. An act relating to criminal offenses, weapons, allows an individual to lawfully possess a device that would silence the sound of natural report of a rifle or shotgun to hunt game. Senator Rogers, number 508.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, how do I start this one? Well, I've lived in a rural community for pretty soon going to be 60 years. And, you know, in the last 60 years, I have had the police called on me several times, and it is for the sake of argument, hauling chicken manure to fertilize my fields and shooting my firearms in my backyard. And doing nothing wrong, but as times change, those situations have arisen, and I think this would solve part of that problem. We have a lot of people that are calling in. They're not so much against the firearms, but it kind of affects their peaceful tranquility in the country. So 43 states have a form of suppressor. Now, most people hear suppressor, they think silencers. This is nothing like that at all. It muffles the sound. It's a good neighborhood bill. It allows us to live in tranquility and my other bill is like this also, but it has to do with target practice and one has to do with hunting. So it's a good neighborhood bill. It's all of my bills, I want to say, have bipartisan signatures on them. And I want to point that out. Unlike some of the other ones, these are bipartisan. So I call these bills good common sense gun laws. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Senator Rogers. Any questions for the senator? Yes, Senator Archambault.
Yes, just quickly, Senator Rogers. I put this bill in past years, and I know that the DEM supports this bill. And it's not like people think about in the classic sense of calling it a silencer. It's a suppressor to protect your ears. I think it's gun dogs typically go deaf, and if somebody fires a gun in a confined space, you could have permanent ear damage. And even outside, some guns are very loud, so the suppressor is a method of protection. And it doesn't completely silence the report of the gun. It brings it down enough so you're not going to have ear damage, right? Isn't that the thought behind it?
Thank you, Senator.
Yes.
Senator Rogers.
Yes, it is. And again, it's also, you get in the areas where out here there's a lot of people that shoot, so you hear it a lot during the summer. And there are some problems with neighbors that don't want to listen to it, and they agree that suppressors would help both people, the people shooting their firearms for their own safety, for hearing, and for their hunting dogs, but also for the tranquility in the neighborhood. And any good neighbor would purchase a suppressor, put it on the guns, and they could shoot, and it muffles the sound. It doesn't have that large, sharp noise to it. It softens and it dulls it. So it's almost like hearing a gun often at a distance. So I think it is a very good bill, and, it makes good neighbors.
Thank you, Senator. Senator De La Cruz, did you have a question? All set. Senator Reptakis.
Just a comment. It also, not only for human beings, but also for pets. A lot of times you hear animals that panic because they hear a loud gun noise, and that would also help with a lot of the pet owners.
Thank you, Senator Reptakis. If there are no other questions, we'll move to Bill number 509, also by Senator Rogers, an act relating to criminal offenses, weapons. You may proceed, Senator Rogers.
Chair, this bill is a good bill. It's not like the constitutional carry, but what this allows is, a lot of people don't realize there are some states out there that have reciprocal recognition of other states' concealed carry permits. Unfortunately, here in New England, for example, I live if I go to the end of my road, I'm literally on the Connecticut line. So I've got multiple concealed carry permits in multiple states, and it gets very expensive, and it's kind of like a driver's license. One should be good in other states. So what this bill does is it allows the Attorney General to recognize other states' concealed carry permits. For example, the Utah recognizes 30 or 32 states. You have to abide by if you go into that state, obviously you have to abide by their regulations, as I do. And it also allows them to recognize them. And they have to, in those states, they have rigorous things that they have to pass to get the concealed carry, the background checks, and all of that. This would just allow the Attorney General to recognize other states' carry permits for them people to come into Rhode Island and still be able to carry under their permits from the previous states.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions of Senator Rogers? Seeing none at this time, the next bill is Senate Bill number 517, also by Senator Rogers. You may proceed. You're muted, Senator.
This bill would prohibit sale and possession of firearm silencers unless the person complies with federal law. This is the the suppressor bill as a whole, not just for hunting, but for everything. This is just, I had explained it, similar to the other one on suppressors.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions of Senator Rogers? Very good. The next bill up is Senate Bill number 737 by Senator Archambault, an act relating to criminal offenses, weapons. You may proceed, Senator Archambault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I put this bill in at the request of Police Chief St. Sever from Smithfield. He's been dealing with, as the other police chiefs have, whether or not to issue permits for concealed carry for some time. And in the process of doing the background checks, there's a manpower issue when it comes to personnel. He literally has to take an officer and have them dedicated just to doing this. So he came up with the idea that if you were to have a CCW permit and then have a background check done for an applicant for that permit for either rifles, shotguns, whatever, there'd be a $25 fee if you weren't disqualified. If you're disqualified, there's no fee. I did get some calls, and people had concerns about having to pay any fee, but it comes from the heart of the chief, who feels that it's a nominal fee that will help offset the dedication of manpower to the issue. And he's been very steadfast in looking at these permits and issuing the ones that should be issued and denying the ones that should be. He's got a good mindset on it. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Yes, Senator Reptakis.
Just a quick comment for Senator Archibald. By charging the $25, would the police chief maybe charge that amount of money and then put the application on a fast track maybe? Maybe even push, like say, if you're going to pay the $25, could it be fast tracked? I'm not sure if there's the delay in the process of manpower, but sometimes a lot of people do pay an extra fee to fast track maybe the application, maybe tie it into some sort of that initiative. Just a thought.
Senator Archambault.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Senator Reptakis. I'll follow up with him. It's a creative idea, and I'll let him know. I know he submitted written testimony, but I don't think he's going to be personally testifying tonight, so I'll let him know. Thank you for the thought.
Thank you. Any other questions? No questions at this moment. Next is Senate Bill number 742 by Senator Archambault. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill I put in at the request, let me just pull down to the squib, of the, I put this in last year as well. Essentially what it would do is it would include the chief inspector and inspectors of those as I think it was for the Attorney General's office. I think it was through Addie Goldstein. This act would include the chief inspector and inspectors as those exempt from carrying a firearm without a permit, and would define them as peace officers. Are there any questions?
Seeing no questions at this time, thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The final bill, three more bills. Next up is Senate Bill number 522, Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. This act for firearm purposes defines a suitable person for the purpose of authorization to lawfully possess a pistol or revolver, which set forth conditions where Rhode Island may recognize a concealed weapon permit for a license issued by a reciprocal state. It also would create an application form that must be completed and submitted by an individual seeking a weapon or permit license, but establish a time frame within which an application must be approved or denied. It would detail the process of review or appeal for individuals whose application was denied, and would set forth a process for emergency permitting extension to that existing permit.
Any questions? Seeing none at this time, we will now move to Senate Bill 311 by Senator Archambault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I put this bill in past years, and it would impose a new law that would prohibit the captive hunting and possession or sale and breeding or importation of mammals for the purpose of captive hunting. And there needs to be a distinction here. It's not game birds like pheasants at Addyvale Farm, for example. This is mammals, and that's the focus of the bill. I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you. Any questions of committee members? Okay, our final bill for the sponsor portion of the agenda is Senate Bill number 402 by Senator DeMario. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. So Senate Bill 402 is similar to the bill that Vice Chair Archambault was just describing, Senate Bill 311. 402 just goes a little bit further in terms of defining captive hunting and also seeks to address specifically the issue of not only importing non-native species, which can have a negative impact on our ecosystems and our wildlife, if they were to escape, but also seeks to address the issue of potentially importing, for the purposes of captive hunting, mammals that actually are native to our area, for example, deer, because of the issue of some specific wildlife diseases, which you've received written testimony on, and I believe there will be some verbal testimony given tonight as well, specifically the issue of chronic wasting disease, which is something that I just want to highlight because that is an issue where if it is brought into our state, because of the importation of deer for the purpose of captive hunting, it can very easily be transmitted to the wild deer population. It is a very contagious disease. There are currently 26 states that are dealing with this. The main mode of transportation of transmission of this disease is animals being relocated. And once that issue would be here in our state, it would have a negative impact on public hunting. And so, it really just seeks to address that issue, in addition to some of the other concerns about potentially importing mammals for captive hunting, again, in the case of them escaping and causing damage to property and also our ecosystem. So I'm open to taking any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions of this witness, of Senator DeMario? Yes, Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. This part of the farming, I read this bill, and I did have a phone call with a couple of people and discussed it. I understand the point of it, but I think it may run. There's a possibility in the state of Rhode Island we may raise elk for meat and also for game farms. And if this bill is passed, it may have a direct effect on a possible, future endeavor on farmers raising elk. I remember years ago, shortly over the line in Connecticut, there were a couple elk deer farms that actually raised elk and supplied meat for local people to use. So that's my only concern with it. I understand wasting disease, and again, you'll find that in highly, highly densely populated herds. I think with our hunting and everything in this state, we're not to the point where wasting disease is going to be a problem. My concern, again, I'll circle back, is possibly hurting a future farm endeavor with elk meat and such. So that's the only thing I had to add.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions? Senator DeMario?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to respond to that, I would be interested in speaking with DEM to clarify this, but that also is why the bill specifically defines captive hunting, versus something that would be similar to keeping livestock. But certainly, again, with the chronic wasting disease, the issue is really if an infected animal, and there is no test to see if an animal is infected until they pass away. If that was imported, it is easy for that disease to spread via getting into the water, or animals can transmit it via saliva and through different ways. So that would be the major concern with that, is again that there would be imported deer from some of those more densely populated herds that could then bring that into Rhode Island. And I will also just mention that Connecticut and Massachusetts already have pretty strict laws to prevent that from happening, and we're pretty protected here from that in New England currently. And by passing this law, we would be able to go a little bit further with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. Now we will move to the advocate portion of the agenda this evening. Each advocate will be given 5 minutes to address all or some of the bills which have been introduced this evening. I believe first up is Adi Goldstein from the Department of Attorney General. Welcome to the committee this evening, Ms. Goldstein. You have 5 minutes for your presentation to address some or all of the bills this evening. You may proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Chairwoman Coyne, members of the committee, thank you for inviting me to testify today in support of this important package of gun safety legislation. Thank you as well to Governor McKee, Treasurer Magaziner, and Secretary Gorbea for their support. And I would like to thank the countless advocates and regular citizens who have come to testify, submitted written testimony, and publicly advocated in support of this legislation. More than 70% of Rhode Islanders support common sense gun safety legislation, such as limiting magazine capacity, regulating military-style assault weapons, and keeping guns out of our schools. Since my testimony before the House Judiciary Committee in support of these bills some 3 weeks ago, there have been over 20 mass shootings in the United States. In fact, there was a shooting at a school today while these hearings have been unfolding. Most recently, we have seen the same terrible tragedy unfold in a supermarket in Boulder, Colorado, where 10 people were killed in the span of several minutes by a man using an assault weapon. Schools, houses of worship, office buildings, grocery stores. No place is off limits, and no place is immune. In 2021 alone, this country has seen over 4,800 gun-related deaths, excluding suicide. While deaths attributable to mass shootings are a small fraction of this number, as a country, as a state, as lawmakers, we must do more to stem this tide of violence. And you have the opportunity to do this now. These measures have been debated for years. And I recognize that there is nothing I or anyone can say here today that will change the minds of certain individuals who are against every gun safety measure, no matter the evidence, the legal support, and the overwhelming public support. We know what these laws are designed to do and what they are not designed to do. They are designed to make it more difficult to get machines whose only purpose is to inflict the maximum amount of damage in the least amount of time off the street. High-capacity magazines, assault weapons of the kind used most recently in Boulder and Parkland and Sandy Hook have no place in civilian lives. And laws limiting firearms on school grounds to train law enforcement personnel are common-sense public safety measures. Laws ensuring that firearms are secured so that they cannot be accessed by children or by adults who should not have access to them are common-sense public safety laws designed to prevent suicides, accidental shootings, and theft. Laws tightening the penalties for straw purchasers to ensure that people who cannot pass a background check don't use a foil to purchase guns for them get to the heart of the use of firearms by criminals. None of these laws trample on the Second Amendment. Laws regulating who can possess and purchase firearms, what firearms can be available for civilian use, and laws about where firearms can be carried are permissible under our Second Amendment jurisprudence. Laws regulating assault weapons and high-capacity magazines have been upheld as constitutional by numerous federal district and circuit courts and state Supreme Courts. They are in places in 9 states. Do they stop every mass shooting? They do not. Will they prevent mass shootings, every mass shooting? No. Will they solve the problem of gun violence? Unlikely. But will they make it a little bit safer, a little bit harder for a person intent on killing as many people as possible in the shortest amount of time possible? Yes, they will. Will they give police a fighting chance to respond to these incidents before incalculable damage occurs? They will. Might they win a future victim a few precious seconds to fight back or to flee? They will. When Governor Mitt Romney signed this type of legislation into law in Massachusetts, he said, and I quote, "These guns are not made for recreation or self-defense. They are instruments of destruction with the sole purpose of hunting down and killing people." Judge Krause, who perhaps more than any other jurist in this state has had a front row seat to the impact of gun violence in Rhode Island, has said about our gun laws in a recent decision, and I quote, "There is no dispute that reducing catastrophic gun violence and the harm caused by the misuse of firearms, whether by accident or design, are more than just important government interests. They are compelling and paramount ones. The only dispute," he said, "is whether the particular statutes in question are reasonably adapted to address these interests." And he answered his own question. They are. These laws, likewise, are reasonable regulations that substantially address important, indeed paramount government objectives to protect the health and safety of all Rhode Islanders. The General Assembly has made terrific progress in this area over the years. The passage of the red flag law has had significant impact in communities across the state. The passage of the ghost gun bill, thank you, Senator Coyne, has likewise already started making an impact. These laws have made us safer, not less free. The sky didn't fall after their passage, nor will it fall after these laws. There's more work to do. Thank you very much, Senator. I urge you to bring these measures to the floor for a vote. The time for action is now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Yes, Senator Reptakis.
Thank you. First of all, you represent the Rhode Island Attorney General, so all the testimony you had just given, are the stats that you're referring to here in Rhode Island? Because we want to try to make sure that Rhode Island is safe. But Rhode Island has been given an A-, if I'm not mistaken, an A- rating as far as gun control. To me, it seems like you were testifying in front of the U.S. Congress in a Senate Judiciary Committee, not in Rhode Island. So, not any disrespect, but the stats that we're looking at is what happens in Rhode Island on a daily basis. So those are the stats we want you to refer to. I know you have talked about Florida and Colorado, but Rhode Island has one of the safest states, I presume, since we have an A- rating. What are the deficiencies in the state is what we should be trying to address, whether it's weapons that are stolen illegally and used in a crime. But I think a lot of these bills that are in front of us tonight, again, we keep referring to outside the state of Rhode Island and not what is happening in our state. So with all that, Madam Chair, that's it.
Thank you very much. Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. I heard the advocate say that the bans have been held up in court, but an important question is, remember, the ban that we're producing is a single feature. I don't think that's been held up. There may have been others, but a single feature ban, one single thing on a gun, dictates it to be an assault rifle, has never been introduced and passed muster on the court. So I really don't think the statement is bills like this have passed. There is a distinct difference on this. And also, should popularity determine our policy? And I want to give kudos to my colleague, Senator Reptakis, because he stole the thunder with one of the questions that I wanted to ask. We should be paying attention to the statistics in the state of Rhode Island if we want to fix problems. And we talked about, just today, she was mentioned there was a gun shooting in the school. Again, remember, I mentioned this before. The bill that we're crafting in the school specifically points concealed carry holders. It's already against the law for everybody else to carry a gun, unless you have a concealed carry permit. So was that shooting in school just today, as so mentioned, done by a concealed carry holder? Again, I'm still waiting for the statistics because that's certainly a solution looking for a problem. And then we talked about the mass shooting of 10 people in a supermarket. That was done with a pistol in a gun-free zone. So that's also important to note where, you know what, we can go on, but that's all I have on this one. Thank you.
Senator Quesada.
I just want to echo some of the, thank you, Madam Chair, first. I just want to echo some of the comments that Senator Reptakis just made, that Rhode Island is a safe state, and I think that's the purpose. We want to keep Rhode Island safe. We don't want something to happen in Rhode Island, then for act to act. I believe when Senator Golding mentioned how many states already passed this law, and they not having the issues that we are talking. How many of those states went to court fighting against these bills? And I think it's prevention more important than doing something after it happened. I think the purpose of this is to prevent that nothing like that happen in Rhode Island ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Quesada. Senator De La Cruz, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Rhode Island is one of the safest states and has some of the most stringent gun laws. Not the most, but one of the most. I think it's really important that when officials come to testify before the committee, that when they reference statistics, they should provide those statistics to the committee. We can't legislate based on someone's opinion. If they have statistics to share, I'd like to see them. So if Ms. Goldstein would email me those statistics pertinent to Rhode Island, not to the country, but to Rhode Island, I'd really like to see where she's coming up with these numbers.
Ms. Goldstein, are you still with us?
Sure. Yes, I am.
Will you be able to help us with those statistics?
Sure. Senator, if I may just respond briefly, I don't know if you want me to respond to any of these questions that were raised.
Sure.
Certainly. So the national statistics that I provided are from the Gun Violence Archive and from the Washington Post. Rhode Island, yes, we're our own state, but we are not actually an island. We're part of this country, and we do have to pay attention to what is going on across our border and throughout the United States as we make laws. We refer constantly to legislation and developments throughout the country when we debate and pass laws in this state. You talked about Rhode Island having an A- rating, and yes, Rhode Island has done very well, but I believe that we are all very high achievers. And our neighbor to the north, Massachusetts, has earned an A rating. And where they differ from Rhode Island and where they have done better in keeping their gun deaths lower per capita than Rhode Island is in having high-capacity magazine ban, assault weapons ban, and safe storage law on which this legislation that we propose is modeled. And so those are areas where Massachusetts that has ranked highest and has done better than Rhode Island marginally on these topics, where it differs from us. And I just want to correct a statement from Senator Rogers. The assault weapons bill is not a single feature text. It is a two-feature text.
Thank you. Senator De La Cruz.
Thank you, Chairwoman. So the argument is always we should be like other states, we should be our own state, and we're going to do what's good for Rhode Island. But let me go off this premise that we should be like other states, as Ms. Goldstein mentions. Well, Maine has now become a constitutional carry. So should we become more like Maine, one of our northern states here in New England, or only when it agrees with your philosophy? So I'm happy to be a constitutional carry state, just like Maine, if you feel like that's what we should be doing, modeling ourselves after our New England states. Or, again, is it just when it agrees with your philosophy?
Thank you, Senator De La Cruz. Senator Oyer.
Thank you. So, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Adi, for being here with us tonight. I appreciate the information that you've provided, and I know that you will continue to provide for the committee. I did have a question about some specific Rhode Island-centric cases that you're seeing, and specifically around straw purchasing. Could you tell the committee if there's been any recent cases around straw purchases in particular, and how that relevant bill would have impacted those prosecutions that you might have in front of you?
Certainly. So the proposed legislation on straw purchasers is really important because it goes to the heart and targets criminal gun use. And those are individuals that are attempting to skirt our background checks. They have somebody else purchase a gun for them because they know they cannot purchase a gun lawfully themselves. The Attorney General's office recently prosecuted and convicted an individual by the name of Rashad Magnum for his involvement in a straw purchasing scheme that involved 89 illegal handguns in Rhode Island between June 2019 and August 2020. Those are 89 guns that went out to individuals who then sold to other individuals in the state who, purchased them from him because they weren't going to be able to go into a licensed firearms dealer and purchase them. And so we think that this is perhaps the most recent or starkest example where this law could be used.
Thank you very much. Senator Oyer?
Chair,
Yes, Senator Oyer.
Sorry, I did have a follow-up question. So the Attorney General's office is obviously the people's lawyer who would be responsible for defending the state and defending these laws under any claims of unconstitutionality. I know that many committee members have discussed this this evening, and one case in particular got brought up in reference to a Ninth Circuit ruling that may have been contrary to some of the bills that are being discussed tonight. I was wondering if you had any more information about that case that you could speak to on behalf of the committee on that specific circuit ruling and on the constitutionality issue as a whole.
Yeah, so I believe that the Ninth Circuit ruling that was referenced is a ruling that has been it was a ruling by a panel, a 3-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit, which now is pending on en banc review, which means that the entire Ninth Circuit is going to be rehearing that case. So I believe that the panel opinion has been vacated pending decision by the entire Ninth Circuit en banc. The multiple courts have heard arguments on high-capacity magazine bans and assault weapon bans in other states or regulations in other states, including the First Circuit, including the Supreme Court in Vermont very recently, 10th Circuit, 7th Circuit, 6th Circuit, and those courts have applied intermediate scrutiny to evaluate the various laws that came before them and have upheld those regulations as reasonable regulations under the Second Amendment. These laws, these courts have found that the evidence was sufficient to support those laws and to support the proposition that these laws were tailored to, address the risks and address the dangers posed by these assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and that they did not unduly burden Second Amendment rights.
Thank you. I will entertain one more question from Senator Rogers. I'm sure Ms. Goldstein will make herself available for any additional questions as we move this program along. Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I'd like to double back to, I was questioned about my statement where I brought up a single feature has never been upheld. It's 2. And I will read from line 19, page 1 of the bill. It says a semi-automatic rifle in a fixed magazine capacity exceeding 10 rounds, or that has the ability to accept an attachable magazine, and at least one of the following. All the other assault bans state at least 2 of the followings. So I want to clarify, this bill says one of the followings, and it goes down, telescoping stock, pistol grip, and on and on and on. So there clearly is a difference in this bill, and I just, I knew I read it correct, and, I just wanted to make sure I get that on the record, that it says one of the following, and that's all I had. Thanks.
Senator Archambault would like to make one more comment, and then we'll move along.
I'll just be really quick. We talked here, thank you, Madam Chair, and I know you said no more comments, so I appreciate the quick comment. We talked here about the philosophy about our region and whether or not Rhode Island is an outlier, and I'm paraphrasing the sentiment that was expressed. And then Senator Dela Cruz said maybe we should be more like Maine in its constitutional interpretation. I think it's important to remember the history of Rhode Island. That Rhode Island was the first to leave the Articles of Confederation. And then it took 11 years. I was researching to make sure I was on target here. It took 11 years, and literally a year after 1789, Rhode Island didn't ratify the Constitution until 1790. And there was some arguing about it being forced, even at gunpoint. We were instrumental in creating certain amendments in the Constitution, but we've always run by our own tune. We were even labeled Rogue Island. And one of the critical things, and this is my point that I wanted to make, one of the critical things about Rhode Island and not wanting to ratify the Constitution is they wanted further checks on federal power. I think it's important that we all remember that it's Rhode Island that we represent, not the region, not the country. We represent Rhode Island. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Archambault. And Ms. Goldstein, I'm sure you would make yourself available to committee members for additional questions if they have it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us this evening. We appreciate your time. Next, we have Commissioner Stephen Parry from the Department of Public Safety, City of Providence. Welcome to the committee, Commissioner Parry. You have 5 minutes for your presentation and comments this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Senate Judiciary. Thank you for having me. My name is Stephen Parry. I'm the Commissioner of Public Safety for the City of Providence. Prior to that, I had a career in the Rhode Island State Police for 26 years. Heading that agency for my last 4.5 years. So I come before you today to ask your consideration in a series of bills that you are considering. And those bills I have testified in support in the past. I fully support again going forward this year. Let me just say that I own guns, and I've owned guns for 40 years myself personally, so I am not an anti-gun person. My profession led me to having to carry a weapon my whole adult life, so this is not about anti-guns whatsoever. As you know, and we've seen the increased access to weapons across this country. So I come before you to ask that we go back to, prohibiting assault weapons. Go back to, because in 94, the federal government prohibited that, and there was research for that 10 years that had an impact on mass shootings across this country. So it does have an effect. High-capacity magazines as well. I don't understand why in a civilized, country like the U.S. that unless you're military or have police responsibility, why you'd need ammunition in a magazine or a clip more than 10. We've seen here in Providence these assault weapons. Thank goodness, and I hope I never see it in my lifetime, we have not had a mass shooting. But these common sense bills that you're considering makes it safe for the community. It makes it safe for our police officers that have to do the difficult work in facing so many guns in our community and in the region. As you saw just a couple weeks ago in Boulder, where a person takes a AR-556 and shoots and kills 10 people, one being a police officer. I understand that, the argument is, criminals are going to be criminals and going to get their hands on the guns. But as we've seen in the last 10 mass shootings across this country, only 2 had prior criminal records. So these are not so-called criminals that getting access to the assault weapons. Whatever their motive is, whatever their mental health may be, is another issue. This is all about access and not depriving people of their Second Amendment rights. Straw purchasing is another bill that you are considering, and I can tell you right here in Providence, it's an issue with us. Most recently, last year, we had an individual purchase more than 60 weapons in this region, and those guns are now being seized and used for crime right here throughout Rhode Island and this region. This tightens up the straw purchasing, so people that are ineligible to get a weapon, those who purchase on their behalf, it tightens it up and gives us a tool so we can, this is about restricting and making it more difficult for accessing weapons, assault weapons, and other initiatives that these bills try to address. School, prohibiting concealed carry in schools. Again, schools ought to be a place of learning, and there should be no guns on school grounds. except the uniformed police officer, and you've carved out some exceptions. It makes sense to me that we just outlaw people's ability to carry weapons on school property. There's more, but my 5 minutes is up, so I'm going to end and take any questions any other committee members may have.
Thank you for your presentation, Commissioner. I do believe I have a question from Senator Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question for Mr. Perry. Assault weapons. We want to ban assault weapons, but again, we're going to go back to statistics. I'd like to know, under the ban that we're going to, if this passes, how many of these guns were found to have committed a crime in the state of Rhode Island this year or in the last 5 years? And specifically, assault weapons. How many of those were used in the crime? The ones that are going to be banned under the assault weapon ban, if it passes, is my question. Even in the city of Providence, how many were found to be used in a crime? Does he have the information for that?
Commissioner
Sure.
Perry? Okay.
I'm
You may
sorry.
go ahead.
Okay, Senator, we have not seized a lot of assault weapons. We have in some instances, and they're mostly seized in search warrants that are executed for drugs or other crimes. So I'm not here to say that there are thousands that we have seized, but this, again, is about access to those weapons on the street of Rhode Island and Providence.
Senator Rogers.
I thought it was about gun crimes and stopping crime. So I want to be clear on the question, and I'm not trying to nail you down, but you seemed a little evasive on me. How many assault weapons that would fall under this bill if it passed, and it's pretty simple, AR-15s, were used in a crime of violence, not in, in the statistics that you stated, specifically how many were used in an actual crime? I mean, somebody can come into my house, and it could be a simple thing, and they can confiscate mine. Does that, I mean, I could hit a mailbox somewhere, and it's a felony, and they come to my house, and they say, hey, you hit a mailbox, and then all of a sudden they got an AR-15, and it's on the news that they confiscated an AR-15. It had nothing to do with the crime. This is the important part I'm trying to get to.
So,
We're portraying these as causing crimes, and I'd like to know how many assault rifles were used in the act of a crime.
And
So
yes, Commissioner, if you don't have that information now, we certainly would like it. If you would please provide that to the committee if you don't have it handy at this moment.
Sure, let me answer specifically that we've had 2 recent shootings in which an assault weapon was used based on the evidence that we seized recently in Providence.
Thank you. Senator De La Cruz. She's all set. Any other questions or comments? Senator Reptakis.
Commissioner Perry, how are you?
Hey, Senator, good, thank you.
Good. I got a quick question. In 2019, there was 35 individuals that were shot in Providence. In 2020, there was 73 that were shot in Providence. And I believe in 2020, there was about 18 murders. Out of those statistics, and you can provide it to the committee whenever you can, how many of those were illegal weapons, that the criminal used an illegal weapon, wasn't registered, it was stolen, and versus how many were a registered gun, somebody that registered the gun? I'm not going to deviate between law-abiding and whatever the case may be, but fact is a fact, because that is troublesome where we're seeing, and when you provide those statistics, that would be great to see them, that a lot of crimes that are committed are usually the majority, if I'm not mistaken, but what you've seen, if you can share with the committee now, have you seen more registered guns, stolen guns used in those statistics I just gave you for 2019 and 2020, and on top of it, the 18 that were murdered in 20?
Yes is my answer. So all the guns, obviously, that we seize, whether it's in a homicide or other crimes, there's a lot of guns, and most of these guns are coming from legally purchased weapons. whether it's straw purchasing, whether it's house breaks, whatever the case may be, they're legally bought guns that find themselves in the hands of criminals doing shootings in the city of Providence.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll entertain
Madam
one
Chair.
last. Yes, Senator
Madam Chair,
Reptakis.
real quickly, just a follow-up, but are those the guns that were, I know they were bought legally, but were they stolen, number one, and used in the crimes, especially the murder, the 18 murders? I mean, I know they were bought legally, but the person that committed the crime, that took the gun and shot somebody, did he steal the gun? That's my intent. That's what I'm trying to get to.
Understood. When we trace a gun, it is rare, if ever, that we trace that gun back to the suspect in a homicide. So when these guns are in the hands of criminals, most of those folks cannot legally have a weapon to begin with. And so even when we trace back, we never trace it back to, even if it's a non-criminal that just committed a homicide with that weapon, these weapons go on the street and they're bought and sold many times illegally to the point where we then seize them at a crime scene. I hope that answers it.
Thank you, Commissioner. One last question.
Thank you, Commissioner.
One last question
Senator.
from Senator De La Cruz.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Commissioner, you mentioned Boulder, Colorado, for instance. So it made me think about Columbine, since it was also Colorado. Now, there was an assault weapon ban in 1999 when Columbine occurred. How did the federal assault weapons ban of 1994 stop the 1999 Columbine horror?
Right, so the federal assault weapons ban, I believe, was for 10 years, 94 to 2004. Statistically, it reduced by over half, if not 60%, of mass shootings. You will never, eliminate based on laws and based on, measures, eliminate mass shootings, because there are weapons out there, and when you want to get your hands on those weapons, you'll do so. But the point is, statistically, it reduced it by significant numbers, and this bill before you, along with the capacity magazine limitation, will have a positive effect on public safety and the safety of our officers.
Senator De La Cruz, you may finish up with this last comment.
Thank you. I very much appreciate that. So the answer then to my question is no, it did not. The assault weapons ban did not work. And so I also like to point out that you said that it won't stop crime, which is something that we've been saying here in the committee. And you also said that when someone is intent on committing a crime, they will commit it, which is also something that we've echoed in this committee as well. So thank you for your testimony.
Commissioner, you may finish with your last comment. And again, if the committee has additional questions for you, Commissioner, we will get them over to you. But you may finish your testimony.
Yeah, thank you. Let me clarify, because I didn't say what was just reiterated, that it failed or it didn't have an effect. Statistically, it did have an effect. And what I said was, we have millions and millions of weapons in this country, and you're not going to stop someone that wants to get their hands on an assault weapon, whether it's banned or not, to get an assault weapon and do mass shootings. But we can limit, as a government, access to keep people safe.
Thank you, Commissioner. Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for joining us this evening.